Okay, I've got things set up a little differently today. I've got Black Butte behind me, which is about 300,000 years old, and it's a cinder cone. So we talked about talked about the idea of faith and the idea of religion and the idea of theology in the last lecture. And as with the last lecture, we're going to have some sort of quiz on this, so you want to take good notes. Here are the terms that I'm going to quiz you on. Starting with altruism, they're mostly alphabetical. So pause the video and write this down, and I would say leave a couple of lines between each word, and then you have enough room to write. It will just be a 1 page of notes. You will take a picture and submit that for a grade, and there will be an open note quiz at some point on this. So I talked about faith and religion, and faith is internal and religion is the external expression of that. I'm going to change my language a little bit, so just hang with me a little bit. The thing I like about theology is I get to feel important by saying really important words, and you get to feel important by learning big words. So the first word is nihilism or nihilism, same root as annihilate. And literally, nihilism means no faith, or faith in nothing. And as I stated in the earlier video, everybody lives by some sort of faith, and so technically, if somebody has no faith or has faith in nothing, then they have no real reason to go on living. The term nihilism is used in different ways in society. You can find it probably in newspaper articles in recent months where they talk about somebody's nihilistic perspective. But nihilism means no faith. It's not a faith. It's just a statement. Agnosticism is a word that some of you have maybe come across before. And it comes from the Greek. It means without knowledge. An agnostic person doesn't know what they have faith in. And in some ways, adolescent faith, faith in transition, is agnostic. You're not sure. Your parents believe this, your friend believes this, you think you believe this. So people who don't know what their faith is are considered agnostic, or agnosticism is the status of not knowing what one has belief in. I want to talk about religious faith and non-religious faith, and I'm going to use the term religion a little differently before. We think of religious people as people who believe in God, so that's how I'm using it here. That for some people, their faith is based on some sort of supernatural power. And there are people in the world who don't believe in a God or don't believe in gods, and they have faith in something, so we can talk about them having a non-religious faith or a non-God-centered faith. And religious faith, the most common type, is monotheism. And the three biggest monotheistic religions of the world are Christianity and Judaism and Islam. They all believe in one God, that there's one God who made us, and God is in charge of the world, and we humans are supposed to follow God. There are other monotheists as well. Zoroastrians are monotheists. You don't need to write that down. There are many Hindus who consider themselves to be monotheistic, but mono means one and theism means God, belief in one God. Just like theology is the study of God, monotheism is belief in one God. I'm going to give you a definition of polytheism that's useful for later on when we're into the Bible and studying some of these stories. Poly means many, and polytheists believe in many gods. And contrary to a monotheistic religion, ancient polytheists, whether they were Egyptians or Aztecs or Norse, believed in lots of gods, but they believed in gods that were limited in their power. So if somebody wanted to go to the bottom of the ocean and get a lobster, they had to get permission from Poseidon. Or if they wanted to go to a certain place, they had to get the permission of that god. And the gods and goddesses were always fighting with each other, and they would cause an earthquake and a bunch of humans would die, or they would start some war because of a beauty contest and a bunch of humans would suffer. Or the volcano god was mad at the sea god, so the volcano god dumped a bunch of lava into the ocean and it killed a bunch of people on the way. And then the sea god came and washed away a lot of that lava, and a lot of the people died when that happened. So the gods were always fighting. So that's the old polytheistic worldview, belief in many gods. there are many, many people in the world who have faith. They have things that give their life meaning and direction. And the first category would be people who are atheists, or atheism. And atheism means without God. People who have faith in something that's not God. They don't believe that God exists. There is no such thing as God. Or you can talk about people who are deists. And a lot of the people who founded our nation, Thomas Jefferson and people like that, were probably deists. They believe that God created the world, but God doesn't care about the world. God made the world a certain way. God wound it up like a intricate watch and pushed a button and started the world. But God doesn't care. God's not watching us. God's not going to judge us. We don't need to follow God. A monotheist, to the contrary, believes that we're supposed to obey God, and if we don't obey God's laws, there's going to be consequences. And then if we do obey God's laws, there's going to be consequences. And deists say, well, the world was created by God, but God doesn't care about us, so I don't need to know or understand God. So in a way, a deist who believes in a God who's completely disconnected from our world is kind of like an atheist. An atheist has to say, well, there's no God, so the world just came to be. There was a big bang 15 billion years ago, and the earth formed 5 billion years ago, and humans formed. All these things, life formed, all these things happen just kind of spontaneously. And because there's no God, I don't have to follow that God. And in a way, a deist is kind of like an atheist, because a deist believes that God made everything, but because God doesn't care about us, we don't have to follow God, or we don't have to try to know who God is. So in a way, atheism and deism are both similar to each other. They're not really faiths, though. People don't say, I'm going to get out of bed this morning because there's no God, or I'm going to let the fact that there's a God who doesn't care about us direct and give meaning and direction to my life. But they're describing, in general ways, how people function without faith in God. If you are an atheist, or if you are a deist, you would have something altruistic which is motivating your life. Or you would have something that is hedonistic orienting your life. The word altruism, or the word altruistic, refers to concern beyond oneself. If I care about bringing about political change, or if I care about helping people, or I care about saving species, or I care about doing good things in the world, I don't believe in God, but I believe in some sort of altruistic thing outside of myself, then that's a faith. That's something that gets you out of bed in the morning. I'm going to get out of bed in the morning to bring about this change in the world. I'm going to get out of bed in the morning to end hunger. I don't believe in God, but I believe in helping people. Or I believe in a watchmaker God, but I still think it's our obligation to take care of animals. So an altruistic person is focused on things beyond themselves. Hedonism, to the contrary, is being focused on oneself. I care about making myself feel good. I care about taking care of numero uno. I don't care about my family. I don't care about other people. I don't care about the environment. I don't care about other people in faraway places. I just care about numero uno. So altruistic things are things that we're concerned about beyond ourselves. And I would say, if you are a monotheist, then you should be altruistic. If you're a good Jew, you should be helping the poor. If you are going to be a good Christian, whether you're a Presbyterian or a Methodist or you're a Baptist or a Catholic, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be helping other people. If you're a good Muslim, you should care about other people. If you're a good Hindu, you should care about other people and care about creation. If you're a good Jain, you should care about things beyond yourself. So religious people, by and large, are altruistic, or the religions that believe that there's a God believe that we should be altruistic. And the religions that I just mentioned, or Zoroastrianism, or Buddhism, tend to say that hedonism isn't good. If you're just looking out for yourself, you're not being a good Christian. If you're just like being selfish, you're not a good Buddhist. If you are focused on pleasure, then you are not being a good Taoist or a good Jew. Some categories of altruism. Sorry. Again, if you're a monotheist, you should be humanitarian. You should be focused on caring for the environment. Environmentalism, care for the environment, would be an example of altruism. And humanitarianism, concern for other people, helping to end hunger, helping to end poverty, helping to speak out for the rights of people despite their gender or their orientation or their identification or their race or their religion or their ethnicity. Those are humanitarian values. If you're caring about the oceans, or you're caring about endangered species, those are environmental concerns. You're concerned beyond yourself. Hedonism, and I don't want you to write this down. This is something that I covered in with a textbook that I used with Freshman Religion years ago. It identified different types of values in our society that were hedonistic. I want to own things. I want to be famous. I want to have the best technology. I'm looking out for numero uno. I want things now. I can do whatever I want with my body in terms of, the things I put in it or the things I do with it, drugs or sex. Those are all things that are hedonistic. And again, if you are a religious person, those hedonistic tendencies are things that are considered to be wrong. I would note there's a word, humanism, that students sometimes confuse with humanitarianism. I don't know if I'm going to put that on the next quiz, but humanists it's kind of like a religion, are people who specifically don't believe that God exists, but they believe in helping humanity. So that's humanism, which is different than humanitarianism. Last concepts. If you are a non-religious person, you don't believe in God, and you look at religious people and you say, they are superstitious because they're putting their faith in some God that they can't see. They're putting their faith in some God that they can't prove that that God exists. On the other hand, people who are religious look at non-religious people and say they are worshiping things that are not ultimate. They are putting their faith in political parties, which come and go. They're putting their faith in pleasure, which comes and goes. They're putting their faith in helping out this one organization. They're not looking at that. They've got an ultimate concern which isn't ultimate. So in a way, people who are religious and non-religious have really, really different perspectives on the world. And a Christian and a Jew and a Muslim and a Zoroastrian, as religious people, have more in common with each other than they do with people who don't have faith in God. Although, let me say this, there are lots of people who don't believe in God who are very good, generous, caring people and very altruistic. And they can connect to religious people. But non-religious people generally don't look upon people as religious as being intellectual because they're putting their faith in a God they can't prove. Although I would note, you can't prove that God doesn't exist either. So a lot of words here. Jot them down. Stop the video, pause the video, go back, and make sure that you have some good notes for taking our next quiz.